Well, thank you very much for joining us to talk about this. And just to start off, Kyle, yesterday was a momentous day, a day of reckoning. And can you walk us through how you were feeling when you were watching Reid Schar, the lawyer for Jenner and Block, read out some of the findings from his investigation into the Blackhawks?
Thanks for having me, Rick. And thank you for all you've done throughout this process since it first became public knowledge. Without you and your reporting, I'm not sure if we would be here today. So I want to thank you first. And yesterday was a day of many emotions. I cried, I smiled, I laughed, I cried some more. And my girlfriend and I, we didn't really know how to feel. We didn't really know how to think. We just held each other and supported each other. Bianca's been my rock from the very beginning of this process, and I'm very fortunate to have her here and be able to lean on her and rely on her to help me on those tough days. And I don't think we could have ever imagined what was going to come out of yesterday's press conference. And following it, just a great feeling of relief, vindication, and it was no longer my word against everybody else's, because a lot of things were made public, a lot of people were interviewed, and I really felt like there was a lot of lies told in the media. And it was very special and important to me to have that truth come out yesterday.
Can you, just for people who aren't following European hockey, can you tell us a little bit about where you are now and who you're playing with?
Yeah, I'm playing in Germany right now in a city called Erfurt for the Black Dragons. It's a small club in the third league in Germany, but they treat it like a family. We're treated very, very well. And the management, they're very, very open, and they do absolutely everything they can for us to make us feel safe, included. And that's something that I really appreciate with where I am in my career right now.
I hope we can go back and kind of talk this through chronologically. And of course, we have viewers of all ages who are watching right now, and so maybe we'll avoid getting into graphic details for those who are interested. The Jenner and Block report is public and it's on their website. But in general terms, can you take us back to May of 2010 and just explain a little bit about what it was like to be called up to the Blackhawks as a Black Ace in the first place?
So in 2010, I finished my junior season with the Spokane Chiefs, and I was originally recalled to the Rockford Ice Hogs of the AHL. And following our conclusion there, I believe we lost in the first round of the playoffs. Several of us were then recalled to the Blackhawks as Black Aces. And I think any time that you get that phone call that you're going up, whether it's to play or to be a practice player, but to be a part of that for the first time, besides the training camp, it was an extremely special moment for me and for my family. And, you know, kind of the next step in pursuing my NHL dream that I dreamed about and worked for my entire life. So unfortunately, a couple of weeks after, those memories were tainted. And my life was changed forever.
Coming out of those moments when the abuse took place, I can't imagine what the subsequent days were like before we get into, you know, how it's affected you over the last 11 years. But what was it like in the days immediately after? Confusion? What were some of the emotions that you were feeling?
To be honest, I was scared mostly. I was fearful. I had my career threatened. I felt alone and dark. It's tough to recall these moments. I think mostly I felt like I was alone and there was nothing I could do and nobody I could turn to for help. And I didn't know what to do. As a 20-year-old, I would never dream, or you could never imagine being put in this situation by somebody that's supposed to be there to help you and to make you a better hockey player and a better person and continue to build your career. And just just scared and alone with no idea what to do.
Who was the first person that you told about this?
The first person I ever mentioned it to was Paul Vincent in a San Jose hotel when we were traveling with the team. Paul Vincent's an amazing man, and I've seen everything that he's done since this has come out public as well. And I don't have the words to express my appreciation for Paul. He tried to do everything he could back then, and when it came to public light, he stood his ground and spoke his truth. And it's men like him that make hockey great. And if you talk to anybody from the Boston area, I was flown out to Boston as a prospect after I was drafted to work with Paul. And ever since then, we've had a great relationship, and I always loved working with Paul. And he's probably the most highly regarded skills coach there is in the Boston area. And not only the Boston area, but the hockey world.
Kyle, when did you tell your family about this, and how much did you tell them, and what was their reaction?
I don't remember exactly when I told them. It was shortly after it had happened in the summer. My mom cried for days. She felt responsible. She felt like she should have protected me, and there was nothing she could do. And after that first conversation with them, we never spoke about it again until very recently. I never brought it up, and they respected my privacy. They would ask if I was okay and let me talk about what I wanted to talk about. And I did what I thought I had to do to survive, to continue chasing my dream, and that was to not think about it, to not talk about it, to ignore it. And that's all I could do, because I was threatened and my career was on the line. And if I had that in my head, then there was no way I was going to be able to perform at the top of my capabilities.
After you went to after management was told about what had happened, Brad Aldrich remained with the team for weeks. What was that like, watching him on a daily basis interact with the team, seeing him at the parade, getting a Stanley Cup ring, later that summer having a day with the Stanley Cup?
To be honest, Rick, I think the only way I can describe it is that I felt sick. I felt sick to my stomach. I reported this, and I was made aware that it made it all the way up the chain of command by Doc Gary, and nothing happened. It was like his life was the same as it was the day before, the same every day. And then when they won, to see him paraded around, lifting the cup at the parade, at the team pictures, at the celebrations, it made me feel like nothing. It made me feel like I didn't exist. It made me feel that I wasn't important. And it made me feel like that he was in the right and I was wrong. And that's also what Doc Gary told me, was that it was my fault because I put myself in that situation. And the combination of these and him being paraded around, them letting him take the Stanley Cup to a high school with kids after they knew what had happened, there's no words to describe it, Rick. There really isn't.
Doc Gary, of course, is James Gary, Jim Gary, the Blackhawks mental skills coach and counselor at that time. Kyle, you've carried this for 11 years, and I don't even know if it's possible to put into words the impact it's had on you. Can you try?
To be honest, Rick, I'm just beginning that process. I suppressed this memory and buried this memory to chase my dreams and pursue the career that I loved and the game that I love of hockey. And the healing process is just beginning, and yesterday was a huge step in that process. But until very recently, I did not talk about it. I did not discuss it. I didn't think about it. But now that I'm beginning to heal and I look back, it definitely had impacts on my life. I did stupid things. I acted out. I snapped. I did things that I never could imagine doing. I relied on alcohol. I relied on drugs. And I'm just so relieved with the news that came out yesterday that I've been vindicated and I can now truly begin the healing process.
Kyle, I want to talk about that healing process in a second, but court documents show that you've said that some of your teammates, after the fact, started using homophobic slurs. And for legal reasons, we won't name names, but how often was that happening, and how frequently was it happening? Where was it happening, and how soon after the assault was that happening?
Word spread pretty quick. I do believe that everybody in that locker room knew about it because the comments were made in the locker room. They were made on the ice. They were made around the arena with all different people of all different backgrounds, players, staff, media in the presence.
So when Nick Boynton and Brent Sopel say everybody knew in that locker room, you think they're telling the truth?
I 100% believe both of them. And I haven't spoken to either of them since the last time I would have ran into them at a training camp. I do not know them. I do not have a personal relationship with them. I do not have their phone numbers. I have not spoken to them. So for them to come forward to corroborate the story, I owe them a huge thank you, as I do Paul Vincent, yourself, and many, many others. John Torchetti, my family and friends for supporting me, my girlfriend Bianca for being there for me every single day. Because reliving this and having to dig back to those memories for the investigation, for the lawsuit, having to tell my story over and over has not been easy. It's been the hardest thing I've ever gone through, but at the same time, it's a huge step, I realize now, in the healing process. But for those individuals that came forward early on with absolutely nothing to gain, they're heroes to me. They really are. Because when I was alone and I was afraid and I was scared, I didn't think I could turn to anyone. Even when this first came out, the Blackhawks denied it. They said they didn't, but they said they did an investigation. They said my claims were meritless. To me, I took that as them saying to the world that I was a liar, that I was lying. And to have these individuals like Paul Vincent and Nick Boynton and Torchetti and Sopel come forward, then I knew I wasn't alone. And I can never thank them enough for doing that, because it gave me the strength to continue forward with this.
Kyle, why come forward now? You know, putting your name out there, being on television, this is a big decision. And I wonder what your thought process was leading up to this point and why you want to do this.
It's a big step for me in my process of recovery, as I process the events that happened, and as I truly deal with the underlying issues that I have from them. For me, I wanted to come forward and put my name on this. Partially, I'll be honest, it's already out there. The details were pretty accurate in the report, and it's been figured out. But more than that, I've been a survivor. I am a survivor. And I know I'm not alone. I know I'm not the only one, male or female. And I buried this for 10 years, 11 years. And it's destroyed me from the inside out. And I want everybody to know, in the sports world and in the world, that you're not alone. That if these things happen to you, you need to speak up, because there is support systems like Sheldon Kennedy, like the US gymnastics team, like the USA soccer. There is support systems. There is people that are with you. And I hope that this entire process can make a systematic change to make sure this never happens again. Because it not only affected me as a young adult and now as a 31-year-old man, but it also affected kids because it was not handled in the correct and proper way.
When Brad Aldrich did leave the Blackhawks in the summer of 2010, he went on to work for the U.S. hockey national program, actually, as well as Miami University in Ohio. And then in 2013, he wound up in Houghton, Michigan, where he sexually assaulted a 16-year-old high school player. And I wonder if that player is watching now, what your message to him is.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry I didn't do more when I could to make sure it didn't happen to him, to protect him. But I also want to say thank you to him. Because when I decided, after a teammate asked me about it, when I was playing overseas, and I decided to Google Brad Aldrich's name, that's when I found out about the Michigan individual, the Michigan team. And because of what happened to him, it gave me the power and the sense of urgency to take action to make sure it wouldn't happen to anybody else. So I'm sorry, and I thank you.
Kyle.
And I hope at some point down the road, if he's open to it, I would love to meet him. Because unfortunately, we share something in common that's going to be a part of us for the rest of our lives.
I'll just take a sec here. Sorry. Kyle, yesterday, Stan Bowman left the Blackhawks organization, and Al McIsaac, the vice president of hockey operations, did as well. Joel Quenneville is still the coach in Florida. What kind of accountability do you think is needed now from others who knew about what happened and didn't do anything about it?
I think that the step the Blackhawks took yesterday is a great step in the right direction. They accepted accountability and they took actions necessary, albeit too late. And the denials until yesterday, I commend them for what they did. Part of this process, I'm not sure what it was, 3 or 4 months ago, the NHL denied an investigation. They wanted nothing to do with it. They didn't want to touch it. US Safe Sport also denied doing an investigation. Now, in statements that came out in the release, Stan Bowman has quoted Joel Quenneville saying, and this is not a quote, this is my words, but saying that the playoffs and the Stanley Cup playoffs and trying to win a Stanley Cup was more important than sexual assault. And I can't believe that. As a human being, I cannot believe that, and I cannot accept that.
Kyle,
I witnessed
where do we go
meetings.
from Sorry, go ahead, finish, please.
So I witnessed meetings right after I reported it to James Gary that were held in Joel Quenneville's office. There is absolutely no way that he can deny knowing it. And there is absolutely no way that Stan Bowman would make up a quote like that to somebody that served his organization and his team so well.
Kyle, where do you go from here? You know, you've now talked publicly about this. Do you have any sense for how, and you talked about how this will affect you for the rest of your life. How do you take something so horrible and try to find something positive in that? Whether it's serving, you know, the public or reaching out to other abuse survivors. Have you thought about where you go from here?
To be honest, I haven't had the chance. This is all so fresh. But the one thing that I want to make sure that comes from this is change. I want to make sure in any way possible that this does not happen to somebody else, because it will happen again. I will not be the only one. Whether it's in hockey, soccer, any sport, any business, any company, there needs to be a system in place that it gets dealt with, and that it's somebody making the decision to deal with it that has no skin in the game. Because if this would have been reported to somebody other than John McDonough or Joel Quenneville or Stan Bowman that didn't have skin in the game of winning a Stanley Cup, it would have been dealt with, and it would have protected all of the survivors that came after me. So I would love to be able to help. I would love to be able to advocate. I would love to be able to support survivors in coming out and coming forward. I'd love to be there in any way possible. And I would love to be a part of a group that really comes up and designs a system to make sure that there is a safe place in the sports world, and that there is a safe place that every child or adult, male or female, can go if they are in trouble or if they feel uncomfortable, where they won't be judged and they won't have to go through what I did.
Kyle, my last question for now. The NHL says that Gary Bettman will meet with Cheveldayoff, the Winnipeg general manager, and Joel Quenneville, the head coach in Florida still, to talk about this. What is your message to Gary Bettman in the NHL about what the right thing to do would be?
The NHL is inclusive. The NHL includes everybody. And they let me down, and they've let others down as well. But they continue to try and protect their name over the health and the well-being of the people that put their lives on the line every day to make the NHL what it is. I hope through and through that Gary Bettman takes this seriously and that he does his due diligence, that he talks to not only them, but Stan Bowman, John McDonough, and anybody else that has information to offer before he makes his decision. Because they already let me down. They wouldn't investigate for me. So why would they now?
I suppose it should also be pointed out that, according to the report, that on multiple occasions, Don Fehr, the executive director of the NHL Players Association, was also made aware of concerns about Brad Aldrich's misconduct and promised people to investigate and didn't. So would you hold him to the same standard?
Absolutely, I would. He represents the players. I don't know where I fall under the NHLPA. I never played games other than preseason, but I was on an NHL roster when this happened, albeit as a black ace. I know I reported every single detail to an individual at the NHLPA. who I was put in contact with after, I believe, 2 different people talked to Don Fear. And for him to turn his back on the players when his one job is to protect the players at all costs, I don't know how that can be your leader. I don't know how he can be in charge if that's how what he's gonna do when a player comes to you and tells you something, whether it be abuse, whether it be drugs, whether it be anything. He's supposed to have the players' backs, and they definitely didn't have mine.
Kyle, listen, I know we're going to talk again soon, but thank you from the bottom of my heart for being open and honest and raw with your story to this point. And thank you for your trust. And I hope other people who are watching will, really listen to